So the fifth and final concept when making your map layout is the idea of negative space. So negative space is really the portion of the page that's not occupied by your active elements. So you think about your active elements, your active spaces in your map, those being the map frame in which you bring in your GIS analysis and symbolization, then your map elements, the legend, the text, the scale bar, labels, uh, data visualizations, all those other pieces that you bring into your map to support the main symbolization. And then the negative spaces being the open areas around and between elements. And those are really the white spaces that give everything kind of the buffer or the place to breathe between the different pieces, right? So you don't have a bunch of pieces all stacked up next to each other with no space between them. But instead you create buffers, you try to make them evenly sized, have different uh, angles and orientations and different elements so you can really get a nice kind of framing of your different elements. So we can look at this map, for example, of a river habitat restoration project in Oregon. We can see, we have our main geographic element here, right? Our main data element. And then on the side, we have our nice locator map. We have our legend, some explanatory information. We have some text that provides some context. Over here on the right side, we have the different inputs. This is a site suitability model. So you have the different inputs of our site suitability on the top, on the bottom. That's kind of matched over here. Has these nice kind of curvatures and nice arrows that kind of allow you to flow through the map, which tells us about our site suitability. Here's the data observations. So there's a lot of elements to this map. And when there's a lot of elements, that can make the design itself really challenging because you're trying to add all these things in, but also you need to think about how can I give it enough space so there's room for these different elements to breathe. So when the map reader is going through them, things appear distinct and clean, but you can see how they lead to other things, right? So this is a great example of using different colors, using different sizes, different alignments like that, different arrows to guide the viewer through, which leads to a nice openness to the map, even though it's very info and data rich. And if we just kind of throw in some visualizations of these different negative spaces here, then kind of see how I can use these blank spaces on the map to really kind of frame these different elements so the map reader can go through the map and not feel like cluttered, right? Cluttered in their brain trying to read the map, or the map doesn't feel cluttered visually when you're trying to kind of perceive different information. So even just going back and looking at that difference, you can see how the negative space or the space that's not being used can really help bring forth the spaces and the active spaces that are being used.